Oh, hello, welcome. Thank you very much for coming along to today's webinar. I'm Tom or Thomas, head TEFL coach at Precision TEFL. Gonna give the other people that signed up just a few moments to jump on because not everyone is as punctual as you. Thank you very much for turning up on time. It's really appreciated. We're going to do a quick mic and video check. So please, can you give me either a thumbs up emoji or a comment in the chat just to let me know that the signal is coming through nice and clear. There we go. A few thumbs up. Very good. Thank you very much. And just to let you know about where I am in the world, as it is relevant to what I'm going to be talking about a little bit later on in the presentation. I am not in the UK, I'm not in the US, I am in Colombia in South America, a lovely little city called Ibagué, not particularly famous, not necessarily the kind of place that shows up on TikTok or Lonely Planet reviews, but a very lovely part of the world. I would love to know where in the world you are listening from. So please, in the chat, can you write where you are listening and watching from? It's going to be important. We're going to use it for a Q&A, which will be coming up at the end of this. So it's important that we get used to using that now. So please, in the chat, everyone, write where you are listening from. We often get a good mix of countries and sometimes continents for these webinars. So the chat, there we go. Oh, Scotland, very good. Tropical Scotland. Good to hear. I know the UK at the moment is, in Europe in general, is absolutely roasting at the moment. So well done. Someone in Turkey, wonderful. Another person in Scotland, and someone very enthusiastic about being in Scotland. China, Scotland. Wow. Okay, so we've got quite the triangle going on here. A combination of Scotland, Turkey, and China. All right, and we can throw Colombia into the mix. Good stuff. Well, thank you very much for coming along. We'll get this started now, just so that you know how this is going to work. I'm going to be sharing a presentation with you, 20, 25 minutes. I don't anticipate it will take much longer. And then we will open things up for a Q&A. I am more than happy to answer any and every question that gets put in the chat, but it must go in the chat because I'm not going to be stopping during the presentation to take questions. In fact, I actually won't see any of your questions whilst I'm sharing my screen and speaking. So please do put your questions in the chat. I'm really happy to answer absolutely anything, whether it's to do with TEFL, TEFL Online, our company, my experiences, whatever. More than happy to share it, but I need to read those questions in the chat. So please, as we're working through it, if anything comes to mind, just pop it in the chat and I will get to that right away. So let's get into this now. I'm going to share my screen here. Can I have one more thumbs up, please, just to double check that this is visible to you? And then I will get started. Thumbs up emoji, please, from someone. There they are. Good stuff. One final thing. If anything happens with the presentation, it glitches out, it goes down, I need all of you, please, to bombard me with thumbs down or sad face emojis, okay? That's the kind of like emergency button that you get to press because when I'm working my way through the presentation, I won't know if it's frozen or you're unable to hear or see me. So that is your emergency button to press. But let's get into this now. As I said, a presentation, and then we will get into the Q&A. Okay, so connect with the world. That is what we're talking about today. That is the beauty of online TEFL or online teaching. And I'm going to be sharing lots of information with you today, not just about this industry and how to get set up, but also some of my experiences as well. And that will obviously lead you, hopefully, to ask some interesting questions. First off, let's get into who am I. Some of you may have attended our webinars in the past, but if you are here for the first time, firstly, welcome. I'm Thomas, head TEFL coach at Precision TEFL. I've been teaching English since January 2018. Done a lot of traveling, 31 countries and counting. I'm from the UK, but I've been living in Colombia since the start of 2018. Also spent some time teaching in Peru, and I have spent a large chunk of my time working as an online English teacher. I now have my own private tutoring company here in Colombia, and the vast majority of the classes that I give are online classes. And beyond that, as I said, head TEFL coach at Precision TEFL, so I dedicate most of my time to helping people just like you get set up and kickstart their TEFL journey. What is TEFL? It's always important to ask and answer this question. TEFL stands for Teaching English as a Foreign Language. It's an internationally recognized qualification. That's to say, a TEFL qualification is valid and recognized all around the world, whether it's Colombia, Japan, Thailand, Vietnam, Morocco, etc. It is one certificate, one qualification that opens the doors to teaching opportunities. It's valid for life, meaning that once you are TEFL qualified and you have that certificate, you don't have to do any top ups. You don't need to renew it. It doesn't go out of date. You've got that qualification, which means that you are able to turn to it and make use of it at a time that is right for you. The great thing about TEFL, thanks to the fact that there is such an enormous demand for TEFL teachers, something that I'll be talking about in a bit more detail in a moment, it's open to people that don't have prior teaching experience. That's to say, if you come from a different background, different area of studies, different walks of and areas of life, TEFL is absolutely open to you. I will be talking about what I was doing before I entered the TEFL world in a moment, and you will get a feel for the fact that newcomers to the world of education are very much welcome in this industry. With a TEFL qualification or TEFL certificate, you can teach English around the world. You can also teach English in your home country, and you can also teach English online, which is what we're going to be focusing on today. Quickly, what is Precision TEFL? Precision TEFL, the company that I work for, is an accredited TEFL course provider. That's to say, our online TEFL course, which provides a qualification and certificate, has been accredited by one of the UK's leading accreditation bodies. Very, very important. Whenever you take a course like a TEFL course, it's very important to understand that it is up to the standards that are required in the industry that it's linked to. And that's why we put our course forward for accreditation, and it passed the very rigorous accreditation process all those years ago. We consider ourselves to be TEFL experts and education specialists because even though my expertise lies in the TEFL world, other members of the team have worked in UK primary schools, and the director of the company spent many decades working for the UK Ministry of Defence, focusing on training and course design. So all of that experience and background skills and knowledge has been put together to create Precision TEFL. And we consider ourselves to be the only start to finish TEFL solution because we don't just give people access to a learning platform and then give them a certificate once they've taken our course. We go a lot further. We help every single one of our graduates get set up and working on the other side. Again, something I will be talking about in a bit more detail. Before we take a specific look at online TEFL, I will just give you a bit more information in terms of my background so you can really get a feel for how you can transition from one world into another. I was living and working in London before I came over to Colombia. I was working in the music industry. I was a record label manager for a drum and bass record label, Hospital Records, for any of you that like your drum and bass. And it was a great time, fantastic lifestyle, lots of traveling, lots of parties, lots of studio time, lots of working with musicians, and just generally I was involved in an industry that I was really passionate about, but I knew deep down that it wasn't something that I was wanted to do forever. And by the time I came to the end of that period of my life in the music industry, I was quite desperate for change, to break out of the creative industry's bubble and generally get out of the UK. Fortunately, I discovered TEFL and got TEFL qualified back in 2017, and right at the beginning of 2018 ended my time in the music industry and traveled over to South America, which, as I mentioned, is where I am today. Worked in both public and private schools, private language institutes. I've done lots of one-to-one tutoring, as I mentioned. A good chunk of my time working as an online English teacher. And as I said, I now have my own private tutoring company over here. And if I compare who I was to who I am now, I'm now married, own an apartment in Colombia, and I'm bilingual thanks to having spent so much time in this part of the world. And all of that is thanks to transitioning into the TEFL industry. So as you can see, absolutely zero teaching experience beforehand. And now that has transformed into, well, absolutely everything that I am today. Okay, so the purpose of today's webinar is to really focus on TEFL Online. As I said at the beginning of this presentation, TEFL opens many doors. The option to travel to the other side of the world, and as I did, and actually work as an English teacher in different classrooms and teaching environments. But one option, and one that is getting increasingly more popular, is the possibility to become an online teacher. What's great about this is it gives you the freedom to work anywhere in the world. All you need is a solid internet connection, a quiet place to work, and a decent setup, as in a reliable laptop and maybe a microphone and a headset to go with it. And there you are pretty much set up and able to work from anywhere, whether that's your office at home, whether that's from a co-working space in Vietnam, a library in Mexico, a cafe in Bogota, Colombia, or if in a hostel or an Airbnb that you rent as you are traveling around. It is totally up to you. And I have met online English teachers that do things in every way possible. I've met people that use English teaching online to fund their travels. That's to say, they backpack across a region and take time out of their day to do some teaching. I've met people that are studying for a master's degree or a PhD in the UK and do some online teaching on the side to fund their studies and their the activities that they get up to at the weekend. I've met people that have relocated and gone through the digital nomad visa route and work full time as an online English teacher from their new home. Lots of possibilities, and it is totally up to you once you know how to get set up. Really, it's down to you to choose how you want to make this particular way of working fit your goals and preferences. The great thing about online teaching is that you are able to access the world's market of language learners. There is an absolutely phenomenally huge demand for English teachers right now. English is the world's #1 language, and there's simply not enough qualified teachers to go around. That's to say, there are more people out there that want to learn English than there are teachers available to teach them. And that very much applies to the world of online teaching. And this world is one that is growing rapidly. After the COVID-19 pandemic, both learners and teachers were pushed online, as a lot of schools had to shut their doors, either temporarily or, in some sad cases, permanently. And both teachers and students realized that online learning is actually quite good. It's very convenient. You're able to set up a schedule that kind of breaks away from the typical office hours or school hours. You're able to personalize classes a lot easier because you have the internet and its infinite resources at your fingertips, meaning that you're not stuck teaching from one particular book or relying on a limited supply of handouts and other teaching materials that you create. When it comes to online teaching, you can more or less pick and choose what you want to teach, you want to use in your classes and teach your students the way that you think is best for you. There's some very powerful tools out there that support teaching and learning, things like AI, things like modern teaching suites, conferencing tool platforms. All of it's out there, and all of it makes for actually a very, very slick and enjoyable teaching process. So that is why this industry, or this sector of the industry, is absolutely booming right now. And that was what really attracted me to this world. I switched to online teaching actually a year before the pandemic. It was something that I was moving towards to supplement my income alongside the classroom teaching that I was doing. And then when the pandemic hit, I was 100% online. And since then, I haven't really looked back, bar some private classes that I do really just to get myself out of the house. It's fantastic. I'm able to travel, head back to the UK to visit my family, go and visit my wife's family in Bogota, even though we live in another city, and I don't ever have to interrupt my workflow. I can continue earning and meet some truly incredible people from all around the world, not just Colombians. I've taught people from China, Brazil, India, Spain, France, Switzerland, Italy, Russia, and many other places. It would take me a while to list them all off, but all of that is made possible from the fact that people are eager to connect with a qualified teacher at a time that is convenient for them in a one-to-one digital setting. Now, when it comes to working as an online teacher, there are two paths that you can go down. I have been down both. First off is working for an online platform. There are physical schools in the real world, and there are, of course, digital online schools, online platforms that students sign up with They pay a monthly subscription or a one-off fee, and then that online platform assigns them to a teacher. The advantage of working for an online platform is that you don't have to do any marketing. You don't have to do a great deal of administration. Generally, students are put in front of you and you teach them. We're going to be looking at this in a bit more detail in a moment, but it's just trying to give you an idea of what that kind of looked like. Alternatively, private tutoring, something that I've been doing for a while and something that I would absolutely recommend. This is where you set yourself up, you go it alone, and then you reach out to potential students and develop your own network of people that study with you. It does take a little bit of extra work. Again, going to be looking at this in a bit more detail in a moment. But in my opinion, this is absolutely one of the best ways to work as an English teacher for a number of reasons that I will outline very shortly. And it's a path that I recommend everyone tries at least once when experimenting with online teaching. As I said, the great thing about TEFL Online is you get to connect with the world. Your morning is someone else's evening, your evening, someone else's morning. You are able to create a schedule that really matches what you've got going on in your life, whether that's studying, working in another job. Maybe you're an early bird, maybe you're a owl, maybe you have kids, maybe you have other commitments, maybe you just like to have the daytime to do other things and then you work in the early mornings and evenings. Whatever it is totally up to you. Working as an online English teacher, you are able to craft a lifestyle and a schedule that completely fits your non-work goals. One of the great things as well about online teaching is you do get to diversify your teaching skills. They are very much the same fundamental techniques and theory that you use in a real world classroom, but by using digital tools, you get to do things from a slightly different approach. And I think for teachers, again, getting used to teaching in a digital environment is a great way to diversify and generally amplify your range of abilities. Okay, so let's just quick take another look here at working for a learning platform. So as I said, there's plenty of them out there, um, all around the world, set up to teach different students. Some of them are international, as I say, they take students from all around the world. Others are based in one country and tend to take people, just from that particular territory. But whatever it is, you as a teacher sign up with them, and then you are usually given login details where you then log on to a platform where you and your student meet each other. Most of these platforms provide their teachers with a teaching suite or an online platform where you teach lots of different tools, the ability to bring in lots of different multimedia. And usually these teaching suites are very, very well designed, very slick and easy to use, and make for a very pleasant and easy teaching experience. One of the benefits to working for an online platform is it tends to be a bit more of a turn up and teach approach. That's to say, these platforms have their own curriculum, so you're not expected to design classes or come up with the topics that you intend to teach. You're there to put your spin on them and to use your expertise as a teacher to deliver those materials. But in terms of lesson planning and general admin, there's not so much of it when working for a learning platform. One of the big benefits, of course, for working for a learning platform is there's no real pressure for you to find students, as that is the whole point of working for a company. Just as the same, if you go and work for a school or a language institute, you're not expected to go and find students and bring them into the school. The same goes when working for an online platform. Now, it would be unfair of me or unreasonable of me not to share the downside of working for an online learning platform. And one thing to keep in mind when you work for a platform is that they will be taking a significant percentage of the class fee. They have overheads that they have to pay for, just like a real world or bricks and mortar company. They have to pay tax, they have to pay other employees that are handling the admin, the course design, the maintenance of the teaching suite. And that naturally has a knock-on effect in terms of how you are paid. So it may be the case that your students are paying one amount, but unfortunately, as a teacher, there are a few things taken off that before you receive your salary. So hourly rates do vary in this sector of the industry, but if you're new to online teaching and you want to find your feet, get used to it, and earn a stable hourly rate, working for an online platform is a good thing to do. I did this for approximately 2.5 years. As I said, starting off at the beginning of the pandemic, all the way through until mid-July 2022. And it was a fantastic experience. I really enjoyed working for a learning platform. It was great to have minimal admin and minimal lesson planning to do. The teaching suite was something that I still miss to this day, as it was just such a nice tool to use. And generally a nice team to work with as well. Even though it is online, you do get to know your fellow teachers and the admin staff. You do feel like you're part of something, even if you don't actually meet in person. So lots of benefits to working for an online platform, even if the money maybe not as good as the alternative that I'm about to talk about now. Before I get into this, I will quickly remind you that there's a Q&A coming up. Please do put your questions in the chat. There's no such thing as a bad question. Write it in the chat, and then I promise I will get to it. Even if you think that it may not be of interest to other people, you cannot guarantee that someone else might be thinking exactly the same. So please do put it in the chat, and that way we can all kind of find out these things together. Okay, so option number 2, something that again I highly recommend, becoming a private tutor. But why would you want to become a private tutor? Well, as I said, there is an enormous demand for English teachers. So finding students, that's to say, finding people that will pay you directly to teach them, is actually a lot easier than you would think. Now, I'm sure for some of you on the call, you will go through what I went through when thinking about this for the first time. Maybe you've never worked independently before, you've never been freelance before, and the idea of actually relying on yourself to find potential clients is potentially a bit intimidating. Don't worry, that is something that everyone that becomes a private tutor has to go through, and that is what we're here to guide you with. As I mentioned, we don't just give people a certificate and wave them goodbye. We actually get really, we take a very proactive approach to help our graduates get set up on the other side. And if you decide to study with us and get qualified with us, that is something that we will do. I have worked with a number of different people that have taken our course that are eager to set themselves up as a private tutor on the other side. And for me, this is one of those kind of hands-on tasks that I really enjoy. Lots of knowledge, tips, advice, and experience to share. So don't worry, you won't be in this alone if this is something you're curious about, but you feel slightly intimidated by. But yes, so high demand for English teachers. So finding students is actually quite easy. You will find that once you have one, that tends to multiply and snowball quite quickly. Students often like to recommend their teacher, and there's a number of different ways that you are able to actually go out and find your students, something that we teach in great detail. As I said, full flexibility and independence. If you're working for yourself, you are your boss. You get to tell yourself when you fancy a day off or when you fancy starting a bit earlier maybe and earning some extra money. You get to decide how busy you are, whether you want to be chock-a-block with students all day, every day, or whether you just want to take a few students on per week. In my case, right now, most of my energy is spent helping people get into the TEFL industry as a TEFL instructor. But sometimes I do need a bit of extra money. For example, next week, my wife and I are flying over to the UK from Colombia. There's always annoying little costs that come up when making journeys like this. So just last week, I decided to take on one student. My calendar was empty because I was focusing my efforts on this, but needed some extra cash. So I've taken on a student. She paid me up front for the block of classes that I'm about to give her. And that money has been used to cover all costs and, zero financial stress from my side. So that's just one kind of real life example of the flexibility and independence that it gives you. Same goes when it comes to moving around. I'm going to be teaching this person here in Colombia on Friday, and the next Friday I'll be teaching her from the UK. Absolutely zero interruption to our teaching schedule. And generally, you get to decide what type of student you want to teach. When you're working for an online platform, they will send students your way, but you don't get to decide if they're a business professional or a young child or a pensioner just looking to fill their time and learning English as a hobby. But when you are a private tutor, you get to decide. And that means that if you're not a particular fan of working with kids, well, don't worry, you can spend your time teaching teenagers or adults. The same goes if you're only interested in talking about economics, well, then you can sure enough rely on the fact that there are plenty of people out there with similar interests that want to learn English. And if we dig down into this a little bit deeper, this is where things get really, really interesting and fun and creative as a private tutor, because you have the ability to bring your specialist knowledge into the world of teaching. You're not expected to teach general English all the time. Now, what is general English? General English is something where you teach English for day-to-day purposes, travel, grocery shopping, buying clothes, hanging out with friends, meeting new people. That's the type of English we would put under the category of general English. But there are lots of people out there that want to learn English for a specific purpose. For those of you that have attended our webinars in the past, you're probably a bit bored of this example, but it's the one I always go to, that of a fitness instructor. If you come from a fitness background, you can more or less guarantee that there are fitness instructors out there that want to learn English. And who better to teach them than someone that is a qualified English teacher that spent their previous time working or studying subjects related to health and fitness. That makes you far more credible. Students are going to feel far more confident studying with you, and that is where you then get to charge some decent to excellent hourly rates, because you have moved from being a general English teacher to a specialist English teacher. And then you can really start to carve out your niche. Now, I know this word niche has been slightly overused during the last maybe 2 years when it comes to, kind of upstart YouTube videos, make yourself a millionaire in 21 seconds. But carving out a niche is a real possibility in the online teaching world. I know a teacher from Canada. He focuses on helping CEOs from China improve their pronunciation. He considers himself to be a pronunciation expert. He has found a market with Chinese CEOs, and he charges $100 per hour. I promise you, I'm not making this up. For any of you that want to see his Instagram, I'll be more than happy to share it with you offline at some point. He's a real person, and he is charging really good rates. But they're just a couple of examples. So think about what you could bring into this world, and that may give you some extra inspiration and some extra impetus when it comes to becoming a private tutor. But at the same time, if you want to become a private tutor just focusing on general English, plenty of opportunities out there. I had someone contact me recently, a young girl from Vietnam. She's now living in the UK, and her mum wants her to improve her English. And once I get back to the UK and the jet lag has fully been shaken off, I will be starting work with her as a private tutor. That is general English, and that is going to enable me to earn some decent hourly rates whilst visiting my parents back in the UK. Remember, questions in the chat. I'm more than happy to answer anything about this because I know it may be new, but it's important to do it. Okay, stand out from the crowd. So some of the things I kind of just mentioned here, that many learners will mirror or match your profile, your background, whether it's health, finance, tourism, sport, data science, food, whatever it is that you do or have done before. TEFL is absolutely 100% relevant, and it is something that you can bring into this industry. So I want all of you to walk away with this fact in your minds. TEFL doesn't erase your past, it amplifies it. It is all relevant, it is all welcome in this industry. You will be amazed at how interested students are in the opportunity to study with someone that is able to relate to their goals and what they're going through. So lots of opportunities out there as a private tutor. And something that we will do if you decide to study with us and go down the private tutoring route is we will help you discover how to find your niche or your specialist subject so you can get the very, very best out of the opportunities in the online teaching world. As I mentioned, you have the opportunity to teach general English, teach specialist English, and also prepare students for exams. Now, this again is where you are able to charge very, very good rates. When it comes to exam preparation, students have very clear goals, and exams, English proficiency exams, are usually the key to unlocking all of this, whether that's studying in an English-speaking country, a visa to visit or live or work in an English-speaking country, the opportunity to get a promotion at work, or maybe to work with a different team, All of that is made possible by demonstrating that that individual is able to speak English at a particular level, and that depends on their performance in a proficiency exam. This is where students are prepared to pay very good money, hourly rates, because they see you as the bridge between their past life and their post-exam life. And you'll see an example here on the right. I'm not sure if any of you speak Spanish, so I'll happily translate it for you. This is where I'm saying I opened up just one single spot for IELTS preparation. IELTS is one of the world's um, most recognized English proficiency exams. I opened up one spot a few months ago during the afternoon, and I'm not exaggerating, within about 90 minutes it was taken, and the lady that studied with me paid me the money for the 10 classes, the block of 10 classes. She paid all of it up front. It was a nice, solid wedge of money to receive, and just an example of how, if you are able to set aside your time for exam preparation, which isn't necessarily the most exciting teaching that you can do when you're doing general teaching or specialist teaching. That's where you're looking at language, you're looking at grammar, you're looking at pronunciation, and you're doing it through the filter of a particular topic. When it comes to preparing students for exams, it's very much about exam techniques, exam strategy, and matching the requirements of that particular exam to get students up to a particular level and prepare them to perform on the day. But if you're interested in earning good money as a private online tutor, I would say this is one of those things that you can rely on as a potential option. Okay, so there's a few things there that we have talked about in terms of potential options, but how do you get into this? Well, the first thing that you need to do is you do need to get qualified as a TEFL teacher. I would highly recommend our online TEFL course. There are other TEFL courses out there, and it is worth checking them out, but I'll talk a little bit about ours. 120 hours, 100% self-paced, meaning that you put in the amount of hours per day or per week that you're able to. There's no deadline. You work through it at a rate and a pace that works for you. The course is made up of interactive videos, audio lectures, multimedia, reading-based classes. There's one-to-one coaching sessions with me, which are personalized to your goals. So if you sign up for our TEFL course, wanting to get started as an online English teacher, then your coaching sessions will be constructed and delivered in a particular way. Once you then work your way through the course, we guide you from graduation to employment or setting yourself up as a private tutor. All of that comes under that post course support that we provide. Again, fully personalized. That is where we really get together with you, discuss what you want to achieve, and we then help you make it happen. So as I said, for any of you that are interested in getting set up as a private tutor, that is where I'll be able to give you some very personalized, very specific, and very hands-on support. And then from that point, it's for you to go out there and connect with the world's language learning market. Now, today's webinar is all about online teaching, so that is why I've expressed it in that way. But I must remind you, this TEFL certificate is valid for both real-world classroom teaching as well as online teaching. So at the moment, you may be considering or curious about online teaching, but you are free to switch at any point. That's to say, if I wanted to tomorrow go and work in a classroom in a school with the same qualification that I use and that I show to my students online for my tutoring company, it's the same qualification. So lots of flexibility. So that's the process. And again, if you're unsure about any of this, please do ask your questions in the chat. More than happy to shed a bit more light on this. We are just a few moments away from the Q&A, just a few questions to ask you. Do you want the freedom to travel, live and work abroad or work remotely? Do you want to make a real difference in people's lives? This is something that I should really dig into a bit more here, because I've talked about the kind of practical side of teaching, what it looks like from your point of view, but from the student's point of view, it's always worth remembering that you are providing a vital service. As I said, some people, they need to pass a particular exam, or learning English enables them to move up the ladder when it comes to employment, or it gives them the ability to communicate with people whilst traveling or working in an area where there's lots of tourists. English is the world's #1 language, so by teaching English, you enable them to be part of this global conversation. I always say that teaching English is putting good vibes into the world. You wake up in the morning with a purpose. You know that you're doing something that enables individuals to better themselves, to move forward, to advance, and it really is just a great thing to be involved in. And when it comes to income potential, as I said, a great way to unlock some very, very decent hourly rates that are considerably better when compared to a lot of the hourly rates that are out there in other industries, particularly if you consider that these rates are available to you as a brand new, newly qualified TEFL teacher with your shiny new TEFL certificate. You are able to go in and offer competitive, high rates straight from the get-go. Okay, we're just a minute or two away from this Q&A. Questions in the chat, questions in the chat. But one thing I would say is that I would encourage all of you to take the leap. Doubts, uncertainties, will it work out for me? Is this too good to be true? We've all passed through this. I spent a long time getting myself into the position to walk away from the music industry and come over to Colombia and get involved in teaching. Had I known just how many opportunities were out there before and just how low risk this industry is in terms of finding a job, I would have absolutely got stuck in earlier. So, this is, I know how you feel, I know what you're thinking about, and I would highly encourage you just to give this a go. Once you've got that certificate, you are qualified for life. It's recognized around the world. The demand for English is increasing rather than decreasing. So the prospects of finding a job are very, very good, both in a physical learning environment as well as an online learning environment. And as I mentioned, we are here to support you if you decide to study with us. Okay, so thank you very much for listening to today's presentation. As a reward for doing so, and as a reward for your curiosity, we don't offer discounts in public. We don't do mass promotional campaigns, but we do offer discounts to people that come to our webinar. And in the case of today, we are prepared to offer you a £150 discount on our accredited 120-hour online TEFL course. That's to say, if you use the code TEFL Passport 150 at the checkout, you will be able to access our course at the reduced price of £199, reduced from £349. And we are throwing in, alongside with this, our TEFL Pro Upgrade Bundle, 3 mini courses, one of which is all about how to get set up as an online teacher, step-by-step instructions to help you do this. Of course, you will also be able to count on our support during the postgraduate support that we provide, but these bundle extras also make it that even easier for you to do this. You'll always have that there to turn to and to take on board whilst you are planning your career as an online teacher. This discount will be available for the next 7 days. You will receive an email after this webinar and after the Q&A giving you sign-up instructions. So once you have received them, it's up to you to make the decision. As I said, the £150 discount will be available for 7 days. All of the instructions are in there, nice and clear. You don't need to worry about writing any of this down at the moment. That will be coming through to you shortly. PrecisionTEFL.com if you want to find out more about the company, the team, the things that we do. And contact at precisiontefl.com if you would like to talk to me one-to-one about anything that's on your mind. And we can discuss ideas and potential pathways and strategies that work for you. Stay connected with us. We are on all of the usual platforms, if that is something that you would be interested in doing. And generally, it is time now for you to ask me anything in the Q&A. So please do put your questions in the chat. Hopefully there's some waiting for me in there. If not, please get them in there now. Thank you very much for coming along today and for listening. So now let's get into the Q&A. There we go. Quite a few more people have suddenly arrived. So welcome everyone. When I started the presentation, there were about 6 people, up to 17 now. So that's great to see. So let's get into the questions. As I'm talking, feel free to put more questions in. My wife is away visiting her parents in Bogota before we fly over to the UK. So I am home alone and in no rush to get out and do anything. So happy to answer as many questions that come up. First question from Rita. How to decide on pricing per hour block? How many sessions a general block contains? What are your recommendations of high hiring platforms? How long a session should be? Good questions, Rita. Let's go through them one by one after this quick sip of water. Okay, first question, how to decide on pricing. Very good question. It really depends on where your students are. Now, we're going to be talking about this through the lens of a private tutor because if you're working for a platform, they set the price. They will say what they're going to pay you. It's down to you to accept. As a private tutor, you get to set the price. Now, you need to think about where your students are from and maybe consider their profession, something that is important to know as well. I highly recommend not just having one price and sticking to it because you will almost certainly undercut yourself. And I have done this in my early days of online teaching. I didn't have anyone to help me know what to charge. And I spent a good few months massively undercharging. And it was only when I really kind of got a bit sick of that amount that I decided to kind of take a punt on a significantly higher number, only for someone to say yes. And then that became my new threshold. So you don't want to go the long way round like I did. When it comes to pricing, you want to think about what country they're in. For example, are they in a developing country or are they in a country that has a fairly strong economy? For example, someone that is based in Saudi Arabia or the United Arab Emirates is probably going to be able to afford a bit more than a student in Colombia. Colombia is a developing country, and the most I can really get away with charging here in Colombia is between 20 and 25 pounds an hour. I can't really push it much higher here. A lot of people in Colombia earn, that's a day and a half, maybe 2 days work for a lot of Colombians. So I need to kind of, play it steady when it comes to that hourly rate. But someone based in Saudi Arabia or many other countries with stronger economies, you could charge 30, 35, 40 pounds an hour as a private tutor. So it's up to you to think about that country first off. If someone from Guatemala or Bolivia or some other places in Latin America, for example, you know that they're developing economies and the local wage isn't that strong, it's not going to be a good idea to slap down a 50 pounds an hour hourly rate because most people simply won't, they just won't be able to afford it. That said, if someone comes to you from Colombia, let's say, and they say that I am the ambassador's son, excuse me for any background noise. We're in carnival season here in Colombia, so daytime sound systems is a real thing. Fortunately, this one sounds like it's mobile, so that'll disappear in a moment. But yeah, if someone says, I'm the ambassador's son, or my dad is the judge on the constitutional court, then you can maybe think about pushing maybe for a slightly higher rate, but it depends on their profession, sorry. So that's two things to keep in mind there, Rita, and that is something that we absolutely would get into in more detail when it comes to postgraduate support. We don't want you going into this blind, taking wild stabs in the dark, because if you get turned down a few times, you're going to lose confidence. You're going to think, oh my God, this isn't working out for me. That's the last thing we want. So we'll give you full orientation and kind of information and ways to gauge this. But yeah, generally, country, first thing you want to work out, profession, the second thing to look at. And don't be afraid to mix and match your prices. How many sessions a general block contains? That's totally up to you. The reason why I do blocks is because charging someone class to class gives them a bit more flexibility to flake. I went the long way round. I learned the hard way, and there was a student that I was working with, and even though she was paying me very well because she was the marketing director for the leading drinks company here in Colombia, so good hourly rate, I allowed her to pay me class to class. So what would happen? I would wake up in the morning very early for a pre-work class, only to find that she hadn't slept well, or she was too busy, or she just wasn't up for it and she would cancel the class. What happens to me? I'm there, left with no money, and that frustration tends to build up. So then I changed and I started to do one or two things. Either charging 10 classes outright. So think about it. If you're charging, as I am here in Colombia, 20 to 25 pounds an hour, 10 classes, that's a very nice amount of money, 250 quid to receive from a student before a block of classes. And that way they're kind of tied in and committed. Students will turn up to classes and get through that block of classes quicker, enabling you to charge them again if they paid up front. If they're paying on a class-by-class basis, they get a bit more flaky. Sometimes, if a student's new and I'm not 100% clear on their goals and they're not 100% sure, then I will reduce that down to maybe a block of 4 classes. Again, still a nice amount of money to receive in one go. And again, they're committed. You can use that money right away or spend it sensibly, however you want, but you get that money up front. Crucially, you're not running around after them, hoping that they'll turn up this time so that you can charge them. So again, it's totally up to you how you do it. They are not, those rules are not fixed in stone. Some people charge for on a monthly basis, like a retainer. It's up to you. Your business model and your kind of financial cash flow is totally down to you. Again, something that we would discuss in detail if you decide to go down the route and study with us. And I hope you get set up as a private tutor on the other side. When it comes to recommendations of hiring platforms, I'm not going to list names now just because, one, there's a number of them, so we'd be here for too long. It would actually be wrong to do that as well because I need to find a bit more, Rita, about your expectations in terms of an hourly rate, what type of student you want to work for, what type of English you plan to teach, etc. So it's the kind of thing we could discuss offline for sure. contact@precisiontefl.com. But there are plenty of platforms out there, and that is the thing to know. A lot of them are based in China. China is an enormous country, and there's a real drive there to for people to be taught English. So no surprise that a lot of companies are set up in China, but they're not exclusively from China. But that is definitely one country that kind of dominates the market when it comes to these platforms. And how long should a session be? Interesting. One thing I didn't mention during the different types of English that you can teach is I should have added a fourth. Conversation classes, very, very common. That's to say, people pay you to speak with them. Because one thing is learning a language, another thing is having time to practice using it. There's a lot of people out there that maybe lived in an English-speaking country 10 years ago and they've gone back home and now they're a bit rusty. They know the grammar, they know the vocabulary, they just want to get their reps in, to put it in a kind of exercise terminology. They just want to practice, and people will pay you to speak with them. Of course, you need to be in control of that conversation. You need to know how to make sure you're not repeating the same subjects, how to get the best out of the time. That is something we would teach you throughout our TEFL course and the coaching sessions. But it is a possibility. So depending on what type of English you're teaching will have an influence on how long the session is. I would say generally online classes are between 1 hour and 30 minutes. 30 minutes is very popular for conversation classes, also classes with children. But I would say 1 hour or 30 minutes. Sometimes you may get a block of 2-hour classes. I did some teaching online for corporate English. That was to say, I had a team in Spain in an office that all logged on to take a class with me. And I believe, if I remember rightly, those classes were actually 2 hours long because the company was really eager for that team to get kind of, to upskill very, very quickly. But I would say an hour is the average class. But it's up to you, Rita. If you feel that there is a gap in the market for 8-hour English classes, 24 hours with Rita speaking English, or even, flash in the pan, 20-minute practice sessions as a private tutor, that's up to you. And again, just to kind of repeat it one more time, you won't be alone in having to kind of think about those ideas and what's best. We will actually get into that with you when it comes to the support. Question from Robin. Is it best/easier to teach English if you speak the language of your student as well? Great question, Robin. This always comes up when it comes to TEFL. So let's zoom out a bit away from online teaching and talk about TEFL in general. TEFL is all about using English as the primary teaching tool. That's to say, we do not rely on our students' language to teach them. There's a number of reasons we do this. We want to create immersive experience. We want the time to be as productive as possible. We don't want to be wasting our students' time speaking to them in Spanish or in French or in German or whatever it is when they, have the opportunity to be speaking with you in English and practicing either their listening or their speaking. So English is the tool that we use. That is the whole point of TEFL. That is the philosophy. That is the teaching methodology. And that is something that you will learn in great detail in our TEFL course and any other TEFL course as well, because that is exactly what it's all about. Of course, if you are able to speak your students' language, there are some benefits to that, particularly when it comes to instructions or if, for example, you're communicating with them offline when you're booking classes. Again, I'm doing this more through the angle of a private tutor here because I think when you're working for an online platform, so much is taken off your hands that where you're just communicating with your student in the class itself, that I would highly encourage you to avoid using your student's language at all costs, or not at all costs, but where possible. But let's say you're a private tutor. Yeah, if you were able to speak your student's language, that does have some benefits. But now with things like ChatGPT and other AI large language models, communicating with them offline, setting them homework, booking sessions, handling payments. All of that can be done quite easily if you're not able to speak their language. I speak Spanish to a very high level. I also speak Italian a decent level, um, but I don't speak German. I don't speak Portuguese. I don't speak a number of different languages. And I've taught students from, as I said, a number of different countries because crucially, once we're in the classroom, I know how to teach using English as the primary teaching tool. Just to repeat, that is something that will become very, very clear in terms of how to do it and why we do it during the TEFL course. So yeah, don't worry, Robin. If you're concerned, if you only speak English, no worries with that. I've met very, very successful TEFL teachers that have traveled the world teaching English in many different countries and continents, and they only speak English. No worries whatsoever. If you do speak the language of your students, that's a bonus, but it's definitely not going to get in your way. Another question here. Were you already bilingual when you started? No, I wasn't. I came to Colombia at the beginning of 2018 and I had very, very low level of Spanish. I knew a few basic sentences and I taught myself to speak Spanish whilst I was here and really made an effort. I had a particular drive and goal because I wanted to come away from this experience or to flourish during this experience and get myself to a high level of Spanish. So I accepted jobs in rural areas away from expats and backpackers and tourist traps. It did lead to some kind of lonely weekends where, particularly in the early months, because I couldn't really hang out with anyone, I didn't really have any friends, because I was still just getting to grips with the very, very basics. But throwing myself in the deep end enabled me to kind of really make good progress with my language skills. Then I met my wife, well, back in the middle of 2018, and yeah, having a Spanish-speaking girlfriend slash wife helps massively. And you know, I've done everything now here in Colombia. Got married in Spanish, bought a house in Spanish. I've done visa applications in Spanish, and just over time, that is how I've kind of gone through the different stages and levels to get myself bilingual. But no, most TEFL teachers start off right at the very, very bottom, just like I did, and it's up to you how high you go, as it were, in terms of the levels of a second language. Next question. Can international students work in this type of job, maybe through a learning platform? So that's from Valentina. Thank you, Valentina. Yes, you international students can absolutely work in this type of job. And I would actually say, when it comes to online teaching, this is where opportunities, I would say there's potentially more opportunities out there for, I don't like this terminology, but I'm going to just use it. In the world of TEFL, we have native speakers, i.e. people from English-speaking countries, and non-native speakers, people from non-English speaking countries. It's not my favorite term in the world, but it is the one that exists in this industry. So if you are a non-native speaker, I would say online, this is where you actually have more opportunities than potentially in person, just because in some places you're going to find for visa purposes or just certain marketing desires, there's a preference for native speakers. That's not to say that it's completely fixed and impossible for non-native speakers to work in real world teaching, because it's certainly not. Here in Colombia, I've worked with teachers from France, from Poland, from Venezuela, from many, many different places, and they do a great job and they've been accepted and no worries. But there are sometimes some more hurdles to overcome. When it comes to online teaching, particularly private tutoring, your English level and your background, skills, knowledge, and experience, that's all your students care about. So that opens the door to a lot of opportunities. I know a lot of online teachers that are non-native speakers that make a very good living from teaching English. If you are from a particular country, well, of course you are from a particular country if you're a non-native speaker, but if you're thinking about, you know, in the context of your home country, you understand the cultural differences between your home country and English speaking countries. You'll understand some of the strange linguistical obstacles that maybe people have to overcome. That's to say, you are really well placed to help someone from your home country learn English because you've already been through it. And that, again, is something that's often very, very attractive for language learners. This desire to study with a British teacher or an American teacher. Some people want that. They don't actually have a great reason to justify why they want it. They're just kind of like moths getting attracted to the light. They just say that that's what they want. Really, when people actually think about it and, you know, like for example, Italian grammar and English grammar are actually quite different. Who better to teach someone from Italy English than actually someone that speaks Italian as well as English, because you're able to really understand where some difficult moments might come up, anticipate it, and help your students overcome it. There's certain things that I simply don't know about other languages, so I can't predict problems that will come up in the classroom. I can in Spanish, and that enables me, I believe, to be a very good teacher for Spanish speakers. But yes, hopefully that answers your question there, Valentine, in terms of opportunities being available for international students. When it comes to working for a learning platform, it's going to vary. The language learning platform that I worked for, they took on non-native speakers or non-native teachers. So there were plenty of opportunities there. Some platforms, unfortunately, will require British, American, Canadian, or Australian teachers, and Irish as well. Sorry, not to forget anyone here. Just kind of listing off things quickly. So you will kind of encounter again some of those limitations, but you may have picked up on this as I've gone through this webinar. I really push people towards becoming a private tutor. It is where you get good money, and it is where you have full independence, full freedom, full choice. And providing you just overcome those initial anxieties, you can flourish as an individual working as a private tutor. So I am slightly biased, but I'm not really ashamed or feeling like I need to hide it. I want all of you to come away with the best advice that I can possibly give. And that is why I tend to push people down the private tutoring kind of pathway. But also here to support for anyone that wants to go down the learning platform route as well. I've done both. Both are great. Back to Rita. Do you need to be self-employed? Does the UK self-employed status work in Colombia and other countries is the same as the UK? Great question. So it is important to think about these things when you're setting yourself up as a private tutor. If you're in your home country or a country you have a visa, it's one thing. If you're traveling through other countries, that's another thing. When it comes to being self-employed, yes, you are effectively self-employed. If you're working as a private tutor, that means that you take care of your tax declarations. Here in Colombia, because I have a residency visa, I am allowed to work in a Colombian school, or I'm allowed to work as a digital nomad or work online. But I declare tax here in Colombia based on my worldwide income. So all the money that I earn, either from working as a TEFL coach or as a private tutor, that goes through my tax declaration. Taxes are something that are important to think about because you don't want to get yourself in trouble. It's just the same as working in a supermarket or a restaurant. Working as an online teacher means that you pay tax. Predominantly, that takes place in the country that you are living in. If you're backpacking and moving from country to country every month or so, and your students are from other countries, that's to say, if you are backpacking in Thailand, but you teach someone in Morocco, very unlikely that you will pay any tax in Thailand. So for those of you that get on the move and become an online teacher, it's different there. Lots of different things to take into account. I'm not going to bore you with it now, but for anyone that studies with us, that is the kind of thing, again, that we will go into great detail with, because we don't want anyone getting anyone in trouble. If anyone has any questions about that, happy to speak with you about it offline. contact@precisiontefl.com. You can also, by the way, book one-to-one calls with me for free. I'm always more than happy to speak with people, set aside as much time as we need. So just as many questions, you're free to bombard me with questions. Always happy to answer them. So that is something that you can book via our website or via email with me. So yes, Rita, it is important to keep things like being self-employed into account. And depending on where you're living, where your visa is tied to, all of that will be a factor as well. Next question, how long does it take to get the course completed on average? Good question. So as I said, it's completely self-paced. You work through it at your own rate. Some people are able to dedicate a lot of time every day, and that means that you can do it in 4 to 6 weeks. Some people are really, really busy. They may have kids, they maybe finish their masters, they may have a full-time job, and they take up to 3, 4, 5, 6 months, sometimes even a year. It's totally down to you. From our point of view, we're not here to add stress to anyone's lives. So we are not getting on your back saying, hurry up, finish the course. We're here to support you and help it kind of fit into everything else that you've got going on. But it really depends on your goals, your aspirations, your plans. If you want to get set up and teaching by autumn, then we will recommend that you put in a certain number of hours. If this is something you want to chip away at, well, then we will leave you to do that. But yes, no pressure from our side. Another question from Valentina. Can we have access to the meetings recording to go over the questions and answers? So, yes, I'm more than happy to upload the recording to our YouTube channel. That is something that I will do in the next few days. I can't promise that's going to happen immediately, just because a number of different things to do, but that will go up very, very soon. And we often make the recording available to people that didn't attend the webinar the first time round. But the discount is not for those people. The discount is only available for you people logged on to this webinar at the moment, just to be really, really clear on that. And a reminder, next 7 days, £150 discount on our online TEFL course. Full instructions coming your way after the Q&A is done. Okay, question again. How would you advise people to find students, either one online or one-to-one? So finding students, this is the big mystery and the big concern, the big anxiety. So there are a number of different ways of doing it. A lot of it will depend where you're based. So for example, at the moment I'm in Colombia, so I can kind of advertise on a local level, but work online. That's one option, depending on where you are. For example, if you're back in your, if you're not from the UK, or you're a non-native speaker, sorry again to use that term, but it's just what is used in this industry. You're back in Italy, you're back in Spain, you're back in Turkey, you're back in wherever. That gives you the opportunity to advertise in your local area, whether that's sending out some messages to friends, getting in some WhatsApp groups, getting in some Facebook groups, putting up some posters, flyering outside of universities is a really, really good option. Flyering in general, I know now we probably all think that everything is done on TikTok and on Instagram, but actually, and this is not just in the context of teaching, those platforms are actually quite unreliable for marketing because of the algorithms. They know that people are trying to make money via advertising, so they charge you. They make you pay good money to get access to your followers. So I avoid that. My private tutoring company, I invest zero, and I mean £0, pesos, dollars, whatever, in digital marketing. All of it is done, through references, recommendations, word to mouth. One of the things that I've done here in Colombia is I've gone outside a shopping center and done some flyering. Within a few hours, people writing to me, people signing up for classes, and I started with them, a few days later. So being prepared to kind of get out there and find people. If you're in an area where you think people will speak English, that want to learn English or improve their English, that's good to do. If you're even in an English speaking country, as I said, universities are a great place to target. Lots of international students that either want to improve their English, or they're concerned about the quality of their written work, that may want the support of an online English tutor. Lots of different options, but don't overlook that if you're in an English speaking country. Flyering and local advertising is a good way to do it. There are some other things that you can do. Targeted outreach via platforms like LinkedIn. Messaging human resources managers on LinkedIn is also something that I have done, and I have actually enjoyed success with that. Once you get your foot in the door with one company or one employee at a company, things tend to develop quite quickly. Word gets around the office, and people then start to recommend. As I said, I was teaching one person initially at the leading drinks company here in Colombia. Suddenly I had 6 students working for that same company because suddenly I was recommended around that office. So good income, good schedule, nice and busy, really, really minimal effort. So they're just a couple of the ways that you can do it. I don't want to go into too much details in terms of the step-by-step process because that would take too long, but it is something that I have done for a number of years and more than happy to share with you, as part of that job finding support that we provide for all of our graduates. As I said, part of the bundle that is included with the discount with this from this webinar for our TEFL course is our TEFL Pro upgrade bundle, which is 3 mini courses, one of which is how to get set up as an online teacher. And there is a big section of that mini course which is all about how you find students. So you will get support from me, and you will also have that learning material to also help you go through the process. But yes, it's actually a lot easier than you think. It's just overcoming some of the mental hurdles. I know, I mean, I was definitely, so you go through that process. I don't want to bother people. It's rude to ask. It's bad to put myself out there. You have to overcome all of that. Once you start offering, you'll be amazed at how many people are actually interested. You know, I mentioned that girl uh, from Vietnam that I plan to start teaching soon. That was on a local Facebook group where usually most people just talk about, you know, the damage to the park gate, and suddenly someone was asking their, you know, does anyone know an English tutor? I jumped in there quickly, and now I've got a new student who's going to be paying me, or her mum is going to be paying me a decent hourly rate. So lots of opportunities, and as I said, we will help you direct yourself towards that. Okay, so it looks like the last question, in case, unless anyone else wants to throw anyone in there. I know some people that left the UK after completing TEFL that went into teaching children in language abroad. Is it TEFL that connects us with such opportunities? Yes, 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 and yes is the answer to that. As I said, TEFL is an internationally recognized qualification. If you take our TEFL course, you will receive a certificate that enables you to find jobs in a play school in China, a university in Colombia, a secondary school in Vietnam, and also online teaching as well. One qualification, near infinite possibilities. You just need to know how and where to look. Again, just taking this out of the context of online teaching, the job finding support that we provide. If you're not interested in online teaching, we also help you go and find a real world classroom job. It is down to you to apply. We can't guarantee you a job because we are not an employer or a recruiter, but we are able to give you all of the information you need to know in terms of where to look, the types of documentation that you should get ready before applying, because you will need a visa. Visas require certain documents. We don't want that to be a surprise. What's a good offer versus a bad offer in that territory? Important questions that you should ask in your interview. That sounds like a bit of throwaway advice, but it's actually very, very important because, for example, here in Colombia, it's quite common for schools to open on Saturdays. So, are you prepared to give up watching your favorite Premier League football team on Saturdays to be teaching teenagers? If not, better to know that in advance than rather than when you turn up. Same goes for other countries. You know, for example, in South Korea, the legal working week is 52 hours, and it's a country with a very high demand in terms of internally, in terms of what's demanded of people in terms of work. That means that classes are often given up to midnight. Are you prepared to do that? Better to find that out before you accept a job, go through the visa process, get on a plane and turn up. And that is why we kind of go through all of that pre-application job finding support so that you are fully in the know, so nothing comes as a surprise and you feel confident in terms of going out there and getting a job. So count on us for support, whether it's real world teaching, digital teaching, one-to-one online platforms. We are here to help you. We want you to get the very best out of this industry. And breathe. Okay, so there we go. That's the end of the questions. Before everyone disappears, because this is what happens now, that people sense that I'm done and then just blip, half the room disappears. Give me 30 seconds longer, please. So, Jeds, thank you very much to everyone that has come along today. Really, really appreciate your time. Really, really admire and respect your curiosity. It is important to come along to these things. It is important to ask questions. So please do take advantage of the fact that, you know, I'm here and I'm prepared to do so. Contact at precisiontefl.com for those of you that want to get in touch with me. precisiontefl.com if you would like to check out our company. As I said, after this call, you will receive an email with the sign-up instructions and the discount code. That's available for 7 days. 349 down to 199 is the certificate that will help you unlock online teaching opportunities as well as real world teaching opportunities, and that will also come along with our job finding support and our TEFL Pro upgrade bundle. Thank you very much, everyone. I know that for any of you in the UK, I know it's sweltering. I'm in Colombia and it is quite hot here at the moment, but I've heard that the UK, if my family WhatsApp group is anything to go off, Europe in general is getting absolutely battered at the moment. So stay cool, stay in the shade, get yourself an ice cream, and I hope to see some of you signed up and kickstarting your TEFL journey with us sometime soon. All right, everyone, thank you very much. And yes, hope to hear from you sometime soon. Take care, everyone. Bye-bye.